Republican leader Mitch McConnell has been talking about one of the amendments pending to the small business legislation that the Senate has been debating that would permanently bar EPA regulation of greenhouse gas emissions. Congressional Quarterly writing that the Kentucky Republican blamed the new EPA greenhouse gas rules that took effect early this year, which require new or expanded facilities such as power plants or refineries to install emissions-reducing technology for contributing to higher gas prices. The Associated Press writing that the initial U.S. troop withdrawals from Afghanistan in July probably will include combat as well as non-combat forces. According to the top U.S. commander there, he told a House committee today, Army General David Petraeus mentioning no numbers, nor did he identify which combat units might be pulled out to begin what President Obama has called a responsible winding down of the war by 2014.
President.
Senator from New York
Yes,
is
unanimous.
recognized.
I ask consent that the quorum be vacated.
Without objection, so ordered.
I ask unanimous consent that at 2 o'clock I be given 5 minutes to speak, and the senator from Texas, Senator Hutchinson, speak immediately after me.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
I note the absence of a quorum, Mr. President.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
The Senate has been working out a bill to continue programs providing innovation funding to small tech and small business research companies. And this morning, senators passing 2 amendments, one supporting a 5% cut in the Senate budget and another eliminating the federal charter for the National Veterans Business Development Corporation. The Associated Press reporting that former U.S. Senate contender Sharron Angle is making another run for Congress. The Republican announced in a YouTube video today that she'll run for one of Nevada's 4 U.S. House seats in 2012 to, quote, stop the liberal agenda. Angle lost a Senate bid to Senator Harry Reid in November.
Senator from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise today to speak about...
Senator is advised the Senate's in a quorum call.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I rise today to speak about the current debate over the federal budget. Yesterday, we had a very telling and troubling vote in the House of Representatives. On the 3-week continuing resolution needed to avoid a government shutdown on March 18th, Speaker Boehner was forced to rely on votes from House Democrats in order to pass a measure he himself had negotiated. The reason was conservative Republicans abandoned their party leadership in droves out of anger that the measure lacked special interest add-ons dealing with ideological issues like abortion, global warming, net neutrality. In all, 54 conservative Republicans rejected the measure, even though it was necessary to avert a shutdown, and even though it included $6 billion in cuts to domestic discretionary spending. Mr. President, this is a bad omen. This was not supposed to happen. Last week, the Senate held 2 test votes, one on H.R. 1 and one on a Democratic alternative. We knew that neither one would have the votes to pass, but we held the votes anyway, and sure enough, they both went down. The purpose of those votes was to make it clear that both sides' opening bids in this debate were non-starters and thus pave the way for a serious, good-faith compromise. But unfortunately, an intense ideological over in the House of Representatives. Speaker Boehner had hoped that after H.R. 1 failed in the Senate, it would convince his conservatives of the need to compromise. Instead, those conservatives have only dug in further. Not only will they not budge off $61 billion in extreme cuts on the long-term measure and special interest add-ons, but they also won't support any more stopgaps to avert a shutdown. So, Speaker Boehner is now caught between a shutdown and a hard place. The Speaker has said all along he wants to avoid a shutdown at all costs, and I believe him. He's a good man. The problem is a large percentage of those in his party don't feel the same way. They think compromise is a dirty word. They think taking any steps to avert a shutdown would mean being the first to blink. And don't take my word for it. Here is what some in the other chamber are saying. Conservative House member Mike Pence said that passing a 3-week bill to keep the government running would, quote, only delay a confrontation that must come. I say, let it come now. It's time to take a stand. That's what Congressman Pence said. Michelle Bachmann said, if a member votes for the continuing resolution, that vote effectively says, I am choosing not to fight. Outside forces on the far right are also cheerleading a shutdown. Tea Party Nation, for example, has called on Republicans to oppose any more budget measures unless they repeal health care and do away with family planning. The Tea Party element in the House is digging in its heels. That is putting the Speaker in a real bind. His need to avoid a shutdown is in conflict with his political desire to keep his Tea Party base happy. I don't envy the position the Speaker is in, but he's going to have to make a choice, one way or the other. There are two choices, but only one of them is responsible. The Republican leadership can cater to the Tea Party element and, as Mike Pence has suggested, pick a fight that will inevitably cause a shutdown on April 8th. Or the leadership can abandon the Tea Party in these negotiations and forge a consensus among more moderate Republicans and a group of Democrats. I think we all know what the right answer is. Speaker Boehner wouldn't have been able to pass this short-term measure without Democratic votes, and he won't be able to pass a long-term one without Democratic votes either. It's clear that there is no path to compromise that goes through the Tea Party. We urge Speaker Boehner to push ahead without them. We are ready to work with him if he's willing to buck the extreme elements in his party. Throughout this debate, Democrats have repeatedly shown a willingness to negotiate, a willingness to meet Republicans somewhere in the middle. And yet, the rank and file of the House GOP has been utterly unrelenting. They've wrapped their arms around the discredited, reckless approach advanced by H.R. 1, and they won't let go. Worse, the last few days have taught us that spending cuts alone will not bring a compromise. The new demand from the far right is that we go along with all their extraneous riders. They don't belong on a budget bill, but they were shoehorned onto H.R. 1 anyhow. Now these hardliners in the House want them in any deal. These measures are like a heavy anchor bogging down the budget. In recent days, a number of right-wing interest groups, like the Family Research Council, began encouraging Republicans to vote against any budget measure that doesn't contain some of these controversial policy measures. That's why a compromise has been so hard to come by on the budget. It's because hard-right Republicans want more than spending cuts. They want to impose their entire social agenda on the back of a must-pass budget. Those on the right are entitled to their policy positions, but there's a time and a place to debate these issues, and, Mr. President, this ain't it. If this debate were only about spending cuts, we could probably come to an agreement before too long. But we'll have a hard time coming to an agreement if those on the far right treat the budget as an opportunity to enact a far-ranging social agenda. The Tea Party lawmakers are putting a drag on the progress of these budget talks. Many Republicans in the House recognize the unreasonableness of the hardliners. Kevin McCarthy was reported to have gotten into a tense exchange with Mr. Pence, one of the lead defectors. Republican Mike Simpson acknowledged it was, quote, unexpected to have so many defections yesterday. Steve LaTourette of Ohio said passing the 3-week stopgap was, quote, exactly what people expect us to do, find cuts and continue to talk. And Michael Grimm, from my home state of New York, said the Tea Party lawmakers were, quote, a big mistake. This shows there are enough common-sense conservatives in the House to go along with reasonable Democrats that Speaker Boehner can find a way around the Tea Party. In order to avoid a dead end on these budget talks, he should abandon the Tea Party and work to find a bipartisan consensus. It's the only way out of this bind. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Texas.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the pending amendment be set aside and call up amendment number 197.
Is there objection?
No objection.
No objection. Mr. President, can I ask, just interrupt? There's no objection to that, but I see Senator Murray on the floor and Senator Stabenow is on the floor, and I'd just like to ask unanimous consent right after Kay, Senator Hutchinson from Texas, that we would recognize Senator Murray for 7 minutes and Senator Stabenow for 7 minutes.
Okay. Will the senator from Texas so modify her request to allow the others to speak after you?
I do, Mr. President. I'd like to have my amendment called up and then speak, and then I'm happy to have the unanimous consent so that they know their order is following me.
Senator from Washington.
From the senator, how long she intends to speak for?
10 minutes.
Without objection, the request is granted. Clerk will report the amendment.
Senator from Texas, Mrs. Hutchison, proposes an amendment numbered 197.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the reading of the amendment be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I do want to thank the senator from Louisiana who's managing the bill for her side for allowing us to go forward with amendments. That is, I think, very important, and I do have an amendment that I think will help our small businesses and our states throughout the country. The co-sponsors to amendment number 197 are Senators Hatch, Kyle, Barrasso, Burr, Johanns, Murkowski, Cochran, Moran, and Ensign. We're approaching the one-year anniversary of health care reform becoming law, and it is important to highlight the reality of what this bill has done to every American family, every patient, every doctor, health care provider, and every small business in this country. 1 year later, the skyrocketing cost of health care is still the #1 concern among our nation's job creators. Just today, my office heard from a small business in Corpus Christi, Texas. It has 34 employees, and the cheapest option for health insurance, this company has now gotten the bids for renewal for the policies that they had before, represents a 44% increase from last year's costs. They have until April 1st to decide whether or not to continue to offer their employees health insurance and to try to figure out how they're going to compensate for that increase in cost. But, Mr. President, this isn't the first small business that I have heard who is telling me the same thing, that their premiums are coming up for renewal. They're getting bids, they're trying to get the best bid that they possibly can, and the costs are skyrocketing. These price increases have not happened in a vacuum. They are the result of the 2,000-page, $2.6 trillion health care bill signed into law a year ago. 1 year later, after that bill was signed, small businesses are facing unprecedented premium increases. Their policies are being canceled as insurers close up shop because of new federal regulations. The reality that the small business tax credits touted by the administration are really just an empty promise that a majority of small businesses will never see. In fact, the Obama administration has estimated that by 2013, as many as 80% of the small businesses will not even be offering their current health care plan anymore due to the new federal regulations and mandates and the increasing costs, leaving the promise that our president made, if you like what you have, you can keep it, as a distant memory. A former director of the Congressional Budget Office has warned that health reform includes strong incentives for employers and employees to drop employer-sponsored health insurance for as many as 35 million Americans. A recent employer survey conducted by the National Business Group on Health reports that 81% of employers have experienced increased administrative burdens because of health reform. This same survey also reported that because of the increased costs from health reform, 68% of employers are increasing the contributions required for dependent insurance coverage. The Congressional Budget Office agrees and has reported that these increased burdens and mandates on employers will result in fewer jobs as well as a shift from full-time to part-time jobs in our country. The Congressional Research Service adds that lower wages will also become a reality because of the new employer mandates. The only good news that our small businesses have gotten recently on this health care reform bill is from the courts. 2 federal courts have found the law unconstitutional, one in Virginia and one in Florida. In January, the Florida judge voided the entire law because the Constitution doesn't allow Congress to force individuals, small businesses, or families to purchase anything just because you live in this country. That is why I am offering an amendment to Senate Bill 493, the Small Business Innovation Bill, that would delay any further implementation of health reform until the Supreme Court rules whether or not the law is actually a valid law. Included in the 2,000 pages of the law are provisions that harm small businesses, their employees, and families. The health reform law contains $500 billion in new taxes, cuts nearly $500 billion from Medicare to fund the new government entitlement, and puts the federal government between patients and their doctors. Health reform requires individuals and businesses to buy government-approved health care or have IRS agents knocking at their door. If business owners want to grow their business and hire new employees, health reform says if you have over 50 employees, there will be costly new federal regulations with which you have to comply. Small businesses across the country who are in the 48, 49 level of employees are now facing a federal mandate that discourages them from hiring more people. This in one of the highest unemployment times in our country's history. We need to get government off the backs of small business, our job creators, and stop putting up miles of red tape that restrict innovation. This bill is the perfect place to do it. My amendment would pause further implementation of this law so that we don't spend millions of our taxpayer dollars and our small business dollars implementing a bill that ultimately could be struck down by the highest court in the land in a case that has already said the law is unconstitutional. So it is making its way to the Supreme Court as we speak. In addition to the effects on the individuals and small businesses of our country, state legislators and governors across our country are also making very tough decisions needed to close nearly $125 billion in budget shortfalls. They, too, are having to meet the federal mandates of health care reform. Their Medicaid systems are being drastically impacted. Some states are saying, because of the Florida judge's ruling, that they're not going to go further in implementing the law. They don't want to spend the millions if the law is going to be declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. On the other hand, we're putting them in the position of taking a chance because there are fines if they don't implement the law in a timely way according to the law that was passed. So if they don't implement, while the court has said the law is unconstitutional, they could pay on the other end by having to have fines because they didn't implement. My home state of Texas is going forward with implementation, but they are facing a $27 billion shortfall in their budget, and yet they're spending money that may be money down a rat hole to implement a law that may not be a valid law. Today, we could take one federal mandate off the list. Today, we can make it easier for job creators to create jobs. The least we can do for the businesses and states and families in our country is to delay the burdens, the mandates, the regulations and taxes until the highest court in the land rules on whether or not it is a valid law. Mr. President, this amendment would not affect any of the law that has already been implemented. We are not doing something that is retroactive at all. But when this bill passes, everything going forward would be halted until the Supreme Court has ruled on whether, in fact, the health care law that was passed last year is a valid law. I ask my colleagues to join me in taking this heavy burden from our employers and our states. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.
President.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, let me thank the senator from Louisiana, Senator Landrieu, for her tremendous work on the bill that is in front of us today, the small business bill. It is so important that we keep focusing on the most important thing we can do right now for families and small business owners across the country, and that is to continue working to create jobs and boost the economy, and that's exactly what this bill is all about. Last month, our economy added over 200,000 private sector jobs, and the unemployment rate fell to the lowest in 2 years. We have a long way to go, but I'm confident we've turned the corner and we are now beginning to move in the right direction, but we have to continue to make progress. That's exactly why I strongly support this long-term reauthorization of the Small Business Innovation Research Program, which supports research and development efforts by small businesses that will help them grow and create jobs. And it's why I will continue working with all of our colleagues to make sure we pass a budget for this year that cuts spending responsibly while continuing to invest in programs that create jobs and boost our economy. Mr. President, the Small Business Innovation Research Program, or SBIR, is a bipartisan bill. It's been successfully creating jobs since it was signed into law by President Reagan in 1982. The resources this program has provided to small businesses over the years have led to new products, new ideas, and new innovations. In fact, small business tech firms that receive SBIR grants produce 38% of our country's patents. They employ 40% of America's scientists and engineers, and they have produced as many of the most important innovations that have driven our economy forward. This program has been especially important in my home state of Washington, where over 2,000 grants have been awarded to small businesses, totaling close to $700 million. One company that has received support is a small business called Infinia. It's in the Tri-Cities in my state. Infinia was founded in 1985 as an R&D firm, but they have been able now to successfully transition to commercial production and have emerged as a leader in our state's clean tech industry. With support from SBI and other programs, Infinia has been able to develop their products and grow from 30 employees to over 150. These are good family-wage jobs in that community, and this is such a great example of what small businesses can do with just a little bit of support. And, Mr. President, there are thousands of companies across the country with similar stories that have received a critical boost from SBIR. Unfortunately, the Small Business Innovation Research Program has been operating now under a short-term reauthorization for the last several years, and that really creates uncertainty and makes planning very difficult for companies that do want to participate in this program. So I hope we support this long-term legislation that will help our innovative small businesses develop their products and expand and create jobs, and that we don't continue to see all these extraneous measures added to it that will stop us from getting it passed here in the Senate and moving to a place that can really help create jobs and grow our economy. Mr. President, I also want to mention another issue that we are going to be discussing on the floor, because it is directly connected to Senate Democrats' efforts to get workers back on the job, and that is the need to pass a long-term budget bill to keep the government open through the end of this fiscal year. You know, I am really disappointed that the same Republicans who came into office saying they were going to focus on the economy, have now put forward a very damaging and short-sighted budget proposal that would literally destroy hundreds of thousands of jobs and devastate our workers and small businesses and undermine our fragile economic recovery. I'm really disappointed that at a time when our middle-class families still need some support to get back on their feet, Republicans have proposed this very highly politicized slash-and-burn budget that is going to pull the rug out from these families at a critical time. And I'm disappointed that while on this side Senate Democrats have put forward some ideas to make responsible and prudent budget cuts that will allow us to continue to do that, out-innovate, out-educate, and out-build our competitors that we need to do, we are seeing a Republican budget proposal that is going to hack away at the investments that really strengthen our ability to compete right now and improve the quality of life for all of our families in this country. The proposal that they put forward would slash programs like Head Start. It would decimate housing and economic development. It would eliminate community health centers that the presiding officer has worked so hard to put in place. It would cut off critical investments for our workers and our infrastructure. You know, independent analysis have said that their plan would destroy up to 700,000 American jobs. That includes 15,000 in my home state. That is a hit we cannot take right now. It would be devastating. So, Mr. President, Senate Democrats are trying to put forward a proposal that goes in a very different direction. We would cut spending, billions of dollars, but would do it in a responsible and measured way to protect our middle-class family and not kill jobs, and continue making the investments we need to compete and win in the 21st century economy. Unfortunately, as we all know, we weren't able to pass that proposal last week, and now, unfortunately, we are back to passing a short-term funding bill just to keep the government from shutting down. I have to tell you, Mr. President, weekly spending bills are no way to run a government. So I'm hopeful that moderate Republicans will say no to the extreme members of their party and come to the table to work with us to pass a responsible long-term budget that will help us create jobs and invest in middle-class families and workers across our country. Because you know what? That's what this is really all about, creating jobs, getting our economy back on track, and setting our country up for continued success and prosperity now and into the future. That is exactly why this debate is so important, and it is also why passing the Small Business Investment Research Program is so critical. So I urge my colleagues today to support this reauthorization, to support small businesses and invest in innovation and growth, and I hope that we can get rid of these extraneous manners and for all of us to come together and do something that helps create jobs and get our economy back on track rather than diving into all the political debates of the past and offering every amendment that we can think of in order to slow it down. This bill is important, and I hope we can move it forward to final passage. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today in strong support of the Small Business Innovation Research Act, and I want to congratulate and thank our distinguished chair, the senator from Louisiana, for her leadership and advocacy for small business. I was pleased to join with her as we worked very hard last fall to pass the Small Business Jobs Act to create more capital for small businesses to be able to grow and thrive and start a new business, expand their business. The 8 different tax cuts that were in that proposal as well are beginning to take effect and help our small businesses. This particular bill in front of us is one more opportunity for us to partner with small businesses who are on the cutting edge of new innovations and new ideas. We just passed a patent change and to update our patent laws last week, and I'm very proud that the one satellite patent office in the country is in Detroit because we're in the heart of innovation and new technologies. Well, we need to make sure that our small businesses are able to compete successfully and have the partnership dollars they need to be able to create these new innovations, and that's what this legislation does. We know that small businesses create 2/3 of all new jobs in America. Our top priority should be working with them to create an environment so small businesses can thrive and create jobs. And I have to say, even in our wonderful automobile industry, which is roaring back, Mr. President, the majority of our jobs are in the small and medium-sized suppliers. So it's very much about small business, medium-sized businesses. This particular program was first created by President Reagan in 1982, and it has helped literally tens of thousands of small businesses create jobs, new ideas, new innovations in our economy. We have led the way in a variety of military and communications and healthcare innovations. It's been extremely successful, and in fact, small business tech firms have participated in SBIR producing 38% of our patents. 38% of America's patents have come from small businesses involved in the tech sector, partnering with the federal government on new innovative opportunities. 13 times more patents than coming from large businesses. So this is a big deal. This is very much about out-innovating in a global economy so we can compete globally and create jobs. Our small businesses in the tech sector employ about 40% of our scientists and engineers, and they've produced 25% of our nation's crucial innovations over the last 3 decades. Now, unfortunately, this important partnership has been allowed to nearly lapse and have to be reauthorized 10 different times in the last 3 years, over and over again, for just a few months at a time. And it's impossible for small businesses to plan for the future and to be able to create those innovative investments and partnerships without a long-term view. And so we have in front of us a bill that would reauthorize this important partnership for the next 8 years and give some opportunity to look a little bit more long-term, which I think is also very critical. Mr. President, we have many, many outstanding small businesses that are partnering right now with our universities, with our federal agencies to create jobs and new innovations. One of those outstanding entities is CyberNet Systems in Ann Arbor, a leader in American research and development in medical and defense fields. They are one of the largest small business innovative research contract winners because of their success. They've added now up to 60 employees and have had 30 patents as a result of the SBIR program. Another important entity is NeoWave in Lansing, Michigan, a high-tech business specializing in superconducting particle accelerators. They have been doubling, and in talking to them today are going to be tripling their workforce because of the new innovations that have been created, and they have now been nominated for the National SBIR Business of the Year. And finally, just one other important part of our economy in Michigan and nationally as we look to alternatives to bring down gas prices by having better competition for alternatives. Alternative energy through battery technology and electric vehicles has been aided by the small business program in front of us today. As an example, A123 Batteries is a company that has received SBIR support. And I was very pleased in September of last year to join with them when they opened the largest lithium-ion battery manufacturing plant in North America in Livonia, Michigan, and they are now creating 400 jobs. So I could go on and on, Mr. President. I will not in the interest of time, but focusing on small business, focusing on innovation, new technologies will create jobs, allow us to outcompete in a global economy, and allow us to grow our economy. And we in Michigan are very proud to be helping to lead the way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator from Louisiana.
I know that Senator Portman is here on the floor, and under previous order will be recognized in just a few minutes. But before that, I want, just for clarification purposes, on the previous agreement, to state that the next first-degree amendment in order after Senator Hutchinson, who just spoke a minute ago, will be from the Democratic side. And just as a recap, there are, I think, 7 amendments pending. We're hoping to get some votes on those amendments that are pending later this afternoon, potentially in the morning. And there are other amendments, if senators have to offer, come down to the floor. And we want to limit, of course, what we can. It's very important for us to move this bill forward. But at this time, I yield the floor.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the order for the
Senator from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I appreciate being given the time to make a few remarks this afternoon as a new senator from Ohio. To be in the Senate is a great honor, and it's also a solemn responsibility, particularly given the critical issues we have before us. It's actually not an honor I expected to have. After 12 years in the U.S. House, representing Southern Ohio and serving in the Bush administration, I returned home to Cincinnati about 4 years ago. Although we'd kept our home there and raised our kids there, I'd commuted for 15 years. And it was time to be home with 3 teenagers, my amazing wife Jane, and other family members, including my dad and one of my true heroes. At that time, my predecessor, Senator George Voinovich, was serving with distinction here and had said that he intended to run for re-election. I was happy to be back in the private sector, involved in 2 small family businesses, practicing law, teaching at the Ohio State University, and enjoying being a dad, including getting to coach my daughter's soccer teams. But I was also watching with apprehension the worsening economy and the way the administration and Congress were responding to it. When George Voinovich announced he would not seek re-election to the Senate, I made the decision to run because I was so concerned about the direction of my state and our country. I saw the bottom falling out of the Ohio economy. I saw firsthand the pain that comes with layoffs and downsizing. Like others, I was frustrated that while Ohio small businesses and families were making tough decisions to deal with a deepening recession, the federal government seemed immune, out of touch. Instead of cutting expenses and figuring out how to do more with less and focusing on private sector job growth, the Obama administration and Congress responded with a big government approach. Unfortunately, the $800 billion stimulus package had less to do with creating private sector jobs than growing the size and the scope of government. And in the midst of all this, I saw a new national health care bill working its way through the system that would substantially increase the federal government role and lock in place the unsustainable costs and inefficiencies in our current health care system, making health care even more expensive for families and small businesses and making it harder to deal with the exploding costs of health care in our federal budget. And I saw record deficits building up to dangerous levels of debt that further threatened our economy. These issues, these deep concerns over jobs and the direction of our economy and the fiscal crisis we face as a nation are my focus now in the United States Senate. And I'm not alone. Whether Republican, Democrat, or independent, I believe Ohioans understand that our state and our country are in trouble. And it's going to take real change, and all of us working together across party lines to set things right. I believe the twin challenges of our time are to revive the American economic miracle and to stop the reckless overspending by government that threatens to extinguish the American dream. And one affects the other. Without a growing economy and more jobs, we cannot hope to reverse the dangerous trend of record deficits and deepening debt. And without getting our spending under control, we can't get our economy moving. It's not one or the other. In fact, these 2 goals are not inconsistent, they are reinforcing. With the fiscal time bomb on our doorstep and all the uncertainty it creates, we will never see the kind of strong recovery we hope for. So we have to do both. In addition to taking steps to get our fiscal house in order, we revive the American economic miracle by moving aggressively to create the climate for job growth, for innovation, invention, entrepreneurship. We need an environment that encourages risk-taking and private investment, which economists will tell you is the biggest challenge we face in this weak recovery. The current economic climate encouraged by Washington is one of uncertainty and one of apprehension. I've seen it all over Ohio. Last fall, I visited an independent trucking company, Worcester Trucking, in Wayne County, Ohio. Paul Williams, the owner, pulled together a dozen or so local businesses from the area for a roundtable discussion, one of many I've had in the last couple of years. Struggling in a tough economy, these small businesses all wondered the same thing. Why has Washington made it harder on them to grow and create jobs, not easier? They talked about the threat of new EPA regulations that will drive up energy costs. Depending on their business, they were worried about other specific federal regulations or mandates on trucking, on manufacturing and banking that would drive up their compliance costs and make them less competitive. They talked about the threat of higher taxes coming, increasing the uncertainty at a time when the opposite is needed, to incentivize businesses to invest and to grow. Like the vast majority of small businesses, most of these businesses around the table that day pay their taxes as individuals, not as corporations. The temporary extension of tax rates on capital gains, income tax, death taxes, and the very real possibility of higher taxes soon reduces their incentive to invest and create the jobs we need. Every single small business owner around the table talked about health care. All of them said the same thing. They said since the health care bill has passed, their health care costs are going up more, not less. They were already going up. Now they say they're going up faster. And that increases their cost of doing business, making it harder for them to create jobs. They talked about premium increases of 10 to 25%, annual premium increases, eating away, of course, at their profits and any chance to expand even after they've taken steps to cut expenses. At one of the 80 factory visits I've made in the past 2 years, Bruce Beagley, an impressive small business entrepreneur in Northeast Ohio, told me his orders are up. Business is picking up, but he wasn't hiring. He was paying overtime instead because he wasn't willing to hire permanent workers because of the embedded costs of health care. And our education system and federal worker retraining system is also failing us in Ohio. Around the state, high-tech companies have told me they can't find the skilled workers they need. This is wrong. At a time of soaring unemployment, there's a skills gap in America. There are high-skilled, high-wage jobs available, but our schools aren't producing a sufficient supply of well-trained American workers. You can't be out there talking to workers in management without seeing these issues. But I've also seen it closer to home. In fact, I'm the product of a small family business. My dad, Bill Portman, who we lost at age 88 last year, was one of those small business risk takers. He took a big risk, in fact, when I was a kid. At age 40, he left his job. He had a good job with a big company as a salesman. He had health care, and he had some retirement benefits. He gave it all up to start his own business, Portman Equipment Company. Started with 5 people. My mom was the bookkeeper. He couldn't get a loan because his family didn't have any money, and the bank wouldn't lend him any money, so he borrowed money from my mom's uncle to get things started. The company lost money the first few years, but he kept it alive through hard work, ingenuity, and sacrifice. My brother took the reins later and took the company to a new level, but by the time my dad retired, the company employed almost 300 people, 300 families. We all worked there, and when I was growing up, the discussion around the kitchen table was often about how government affects small business, how it affected him, rules, regulations, taxes. My dad is among my heroes because of his hard work and his sacrifice, but because they built something of value. I've seen it done. I know the role government can play and should not play in helping create jobs and opportunities. About a year ago, I asked my dad if he would take the same risk today. He thought about it for a while, kind of shook his head and said, I don't know. There's just so much uncertainty out there. That's a word I hear a lot from small business owners all over Ohio. That's the reason a lot of job creators or potential job creators are staying on the sidelines, keeping their cash on the sidelines, rather than investing in plant, equipment, and people. Leadership is needed to create a positive climate which spurs job growth, drives opportunity, and restores the American dream. Leadership is needed to get a handle on our serious fiscal issues. Instead, we're debating at the margins. You'll see it play out on the floor of the Senate this week. We're locked in a fierce partisan battle about less than 1% of federal outlays, actual federal spending in this fiscal year. And we aren't even addressing the biggest and fastest growing part of our budget, which is the important but unsustainable entitlement programs. In fact, as American families have tightened their belts over the past couple of years and businesses have had to do more with less, the federal government has taken the opposite path, spending more, growing bigger, and becoming more involved in our private economy and our lives. Over the past 2 years, Paul Williams at that trucking company in Worcester I talked about had to cut expenses to stay afloat. In fact, they had to sell a couple of their trucks and let people go. Here in Washington, during that same time, the U.S. government, through going deeper into debt, borrowing more money, brought on more government employees and grew in size. During that same 2 years, Washington spent 27% more in the so-called domestic discretionary spending that's being debated on the floor this week. It doesn't count the stimulus bill and other one-time spending. I'm told that gives us a staggering 80% increase in this type of spending over the past couple of years. This historic failure to control spending directly affects all of us because it affects our economy and our ability to create jobs. It pushes up interest rates, affecting car loans, mortgages, student loans. It crowds out private investment, and it leaves us with three bad choices: far higher taxes, even more borrowing, or both. This will surprise no one, but recently a group of 47 respected business economists agreed that the single biggest threat to our economy was our debt and deficits. Restoring fiscal constraint is critical to creating the certainty that employers and entrepreneurs need to create jobs across Ohio and across our country. It's truly dangerous because left unchecked, these mounting debts are likely to lead to the kind of debt crisis we've seen in other countries, like Greece. The government spending more than it takes in hurts our economy today and mortgages the future for our kids and grandkids. Think about this. Every child born in America today automatically, through no fault of their own, inherits $45,000 in U.S. debt. People are looking for a better way. People are looking for leadership from Washington that takes on those challenges that Ohio's businesses and workers are facing every day. The status quo isn't working. There's an urgency about this that the American people get, even while many in Washington seem to be in denial. We need to rise to that challenge and work together across party lines to meet our economic and fiscal problems head on by aggressively putting in place pro-growth measures and spending restraint. And we've got to do it now. We've got to think and act differently to compete and win in the global economy, regain America's place in the world, and give working families the hope of a better tomorrow. We can no longer rest on our laurels, no longer afford the luxury of living with a substandard education system that doesn't produce young people with the 21st century skills they need to succeed. We can't afford a bureaucratic regulatory regime and a hopelessly complicated tax code that favors social engineering over sound business decisions. We can no longer sit back while our dependence on foreign oil charts our destiny, rather than American innovation and technology. We can't compete and win if our health care system is so inefficient that its costs are double the rest of the developed world, while outcomes are unsatisfactory, particularly for those millions of American families without coverage. This is wrong for the small businesses at the round table I talked about earlier, who are trying to provide health care and yet stay afloat. And it's wrong for working families whose rising costs are eating away at their opportunity to move up the ladder. To revive the American economic miracle, we need to revolutionize the way we think about all the major institutions of our economy. We need structural reform of our regulatory system, of our tax system, of our energy policy, worker retraining and education, health care delivery, our trade policy, and our legal system. And of course, we must fix our broken budgeting system that has us so deeply in debt. These challenges are not insurmountable. I know that because we're Americans, and we've done this before. We waged a world war that required more resources and sacrifice than anything we face today, and we came out stronger. We survived a civil war, a Great Depression, and a Cold War to emerge as the beacon of hope and opportunity for the rest of the world. There's a long line of distinguished senators from Ohio who were part of these historic times, including Warren G. Harding and William Henry Harrison. One famous predecessor is John Glenn, an American hero who, along with his wife Annie, I've been honored to know and work with over the years. And I immediately follow Senator George Voinovich, one of the very finest public servants our state has ever known. Jane and I are grateful to George and Janet for their support and their friendship and for the extraordinary legacy that they leave. There's another former Ohio senator whose desk I requested and speak from today, Robert A. Taft, a fellow Cincinnatian who actually worked at the same law firm where I was a partner before being elected to Congress. Like me, he also served in the House of Representatives and the executive branch. Unlike me, he was first in his high school, college, and law school class, and was said to have had the, quote, best mind in Washington, end quote. Democrats joke that he had the best mind in Washington until he made it up. He was a principled and effective Republican leader. In fact, when his peers commissioned a review of the top 5 U.S. senators in the history of this place, he was selected to be among them. That's why he is one of only 5 senators to have a portrait hanging in the President's room right here off the Senate floor. He was a featured profile in courage in John Kennedy's book. And on his memorial across Constitution Avenue, it is written that it, quote, stands as a tribute to the honesty, indomitable courage, and high principles of free government, symbolized by his life. You know, it's always dangerous to predict how a former senator would react to today's predicaments. But I'm confident that were Robert A. Taft among us today, he would rise in full-throated support of addressing the twin challenges we've talked about today. His honesty would force him to admit that our economic systems are not up to the global competition of the 21st century. His courage would force him to insist that we address our budget woes, including entitlements. And his love of liberty would compel him to fight for solutions to our economic challenges that promote free markets and the power and dignity of the individual over the heavy hand of government. I will rely on my faith, my family, and the good people of Ohio in my work here in this Senate. As we've discussed, there's a lot of hard work to do. In my role, I hope to be worthy of this great and temporary privilege. I'll work constructively with my colleagues to achieve results, including working with the senior senator from Ohio, Sherrod Brown, and others across the aisle. I'll work every day to try to earn the confidence and trust the people of Ohio have placed in me. As we go forward together, may God bless Ohio and this great nation and help guide us in our shared commitment to a better future. Thank you for listening. Mr. President, I yield the floor and note the evidence before him.
Mr. President.